I'm Tina Reynolds, and I'm here with Thea Kaiser, and we are going to go into our storytelling, Black stories that white people need to hear. I brought my big ears, and I hope if you're watching this, you're going to bring your big ears because we're all learning how it is to be Black in Sacramento. Thea, I know that you have a story to tell about some racism that happened to you. If you don't mind telling us, go for it.
Tina, thank you for having me. And I just want to say thank you for, prioritizing putting our stories out into the world. Obviously, I love Uptown, you know that, and I know that you guys have a following and a platform, and I really appreciate you taking the time to sit with me. But yes, I think that as a person of color, I too have a story of, just how the color of my skin, cause people to make assumptions about me and treat me differently than they might have otherwise if they had given it a little more thought. So I wanted to actually share my story with the police because I think it's unique in that it's not overly spectacular. But what I will say that I have experienced is that I've been stopped by the police continuously. I think a lot of people can relate to if your registration tick tags aren't up to date, or, if you have a headlight out. I've noticed that I've gotten stopped for a lot of these kinds of things. And then the interactions that I have in those moments are very interesting. For example, I recently, a few months ago, was stopped because my registration tags hadn't come in from the DMV yet, but I had already paid my penalty, not my fees. There we go. So I was pulled over by the police officer, and I noticed that he was kind of just looking at my car. I was like, kind of messy on my way to Walmart, just a regular Saturday. And, one of the first questions that the police officer asked me was if I was on probation. And so I thought that was very interesting. And I should add that this was a Black police officer, and so, and so my story isn't overwhelming in that I didn't have this, a violent experience. But I think what happened to me was just kind of offensive. So the police officer asked me, "Oh, are you on probation?" And immediately my response was, "Absolutely not." I had this look of shock. And he kind of chuckled and said, "Oh, okay, well, and I think, I was watching Kiara, her storytelling, and she hit on something great. And it's this shift in demeanor that you experience. So, someone's asking me if I'm on probation. I have this like gasp and this reaction. And then immediately he's like, "Oh, well, I'll just let you go." I think once he got a better sense of who I was and how offended I kind of seemed by that comment. And so I think that this story, the whole point of me trying to tell this is that I'm just trying to get it, the little microaggressions and the tiny little ways on a random day that you might feel like someone is making an assumption about you that really isn't true about who you are. And, as someone who went to UC Davis and, tries really hard to kindle their professional career, it really hurt my feelings that the first thought that this police officer had was that I might be on probation.
Well, and no matter how bad I look driving in my whole life, no one has ever asked if I was on probation. And I am sure that they don't normally ask white drivers if they're on probation, right? I don't, that's where this microaggression or inappropriate questioning it's rampant. It is just out there. And the stories that I'm hearing from my Black friends is like, that never has happened to me. And I say that on every one of the interviews. That's never happened to me. And it is, it's not innocent. It is, it's built into the systems. And it's trained into the officers to be asking those kinds of questions to people that they have tagged that they should be asking the questions to. So let's talk about the weightiness of leaving your safe home in the comfort of all your friends and going into a big white room. or just going into the grocery store. It's like, what does that feel like?
Right now, it feels like a lot. I think if you serve on a committee or you're on different teams, there's a lot of different conversations happening right now. And to be a person of color, it almost feels like all eyes are on you, but in a way that we're excited about. But I must admit that it's also a little bit uncomfortable just because it's such a heightened awareness. Right now, there is just a heaviness, and I think we all want to do a lot for our communities. I know I personally feel that. And so I think that for me personally, I realized that up until now, I've been so focused on just spurring the conversation around inequities. And, just to be able to sit here and have a conversation with you and to tell you about how offended I was by a question about whether or not I'm on probation, and to have you hear me out and just give me my voice. I think that I've been so focused on just getting the conversation started that I never really gave a ton of thought of when people are ready to, move to action. What are those steps that we're taking? And, I think it's also especially difficult that what if there aren't people of color in that room yet and the conversations are taking place? Or, what if you're the only person of color in that room? And so I think that is where some of the heaviness and pressure comes in for me, is that now that the moment is here, how are we seizing it? And, I think we can all be asking ourselves that question, regardless of color.
Yeah, right. It is, I think that for me, it is, I want to represent my whole community, my whole integrated community in every space that I can go to. And I do that by saying, the panel only has 4 white men. We need more diversity. I'm sitting on a board, and when I am the diversity because I'm gay, I know that something's wrong, right? We need more of me, the diversity of me. We need all of the communities represented at the table, because the conversation just gets richer every time. So you, as a young person in this world, you have your whole adult life now that can roll out. And how do you find your voice? How is it that you find your voice to have these complicated, deep, and hard conversations?
In light of this time, I have to say that the community that I've seen and the different ways I've engaged my community now is really what makes it possible for me to feel comfortable to stand up and give some light to my voice, and to try and come up with ideas to move action forward to create more equity in our communities. And so I think that the camaraderie I felt has really helped me. I think it's helped me feel safe. And again, I just have to talk about, that the motivation I've seen from people, to get in and to make something happen. And it really is a global movement. And so I think that gives me more energy to, carry out these difficult conversations.
In the community, when do you recall in your life realizing that there was action against the Black community? What was your first memory of, ooh, I'm Black and this is happening to other Black people?
This is a more minute detail, and I guess I really, always think in terms of these microaggressions because they were some of my most traumatic experiences. But when I was in 5th grade, I was in class, and I can't remember what the subject was, but my teacher was a white woman who I loved, actually. And so we were just having a casual conversation in class, as 5th graders do. And my teacher said something to the effect of that children of color, Black and Mexican children more specifically, do not perform as well in school. And this is to a group of 5th graders who are primarily white. I'm one of a very few of students of color. And I would say that that was the first time that I realized that there were things in life that were going to hold me back because of my skin color. You know, that was the first time it really smacked me in the face, because that was a teacher who wrote my report cards and knew that I got straight A's. And she was saying this to my classmates, and I was very concerned about what my classmates would think about, you know, children of color. So this wasn't exactly the moment when I discovered what institutional racism was, but really what it was for me was realizing that there were things that people were learning about Black and brown children that could negatively impact us.
Yeah. So I want to end this on, if there's a positive note. With all of this, I mean, it just is an explosion of new everything. Are you feeling at all hopeful?
Oh, I feel very hopeful. I mean, this is not the same landscape that I saw in 2012 or 2013, you know. I think the other day I heard something that said that Eric Garner passed 6 years ago. And that blew my mind, because I was like, wow, you know, I personally have been feeling exhausted, but this has given me a new wave of hope and motivation, because people are completely tuning in and listening in a completely different way with, you know, again, that emphasis on action. And I think that's a key difference, you know. It's so I think that gives me more hope than people might know.
Well, you know, I hope through this big movement, this big, huge global movement, and I think that one of the big differences is that you look at the rallies and the marches and the protests, it's everyone. It's not only Black people, it's everyone. We're out there together, and we're going to be creating change. I hope through all this, you find your big voice and you share it. And you're part of the movement. You are part of the movement. I'm part of the movement. That we find our voices together and we move this agenda forward and really create that deep core change that needs to be changed. And thank you so much for sharing your story with me. It's important that young people hear your story. And it's even more important that people my age hear your story, because I don't want you to grow up the way that so many Black people have had to grow up into their adulthood. And I appreciate you so much, Thea. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate you and your listening ears, Tina. This was very kind of you.
I have my big ears on. Just tell me any stories.
You did. This was a therapy session. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.